Welcome to the Teens Behind the Scenes webinar series. My name is Leanne Dempsey, and the Teens Behind the Scenes program is of the National Theater Foundation, and it is dedicated to providing teens in the Washington, D.C. area with access to Broadway touring productions and professional insight into performing arts careers. So in this series, we interview theater professionals to learn more about what they do, how they do it, and how they got to where they are now. So joining me today is the wonderful Gabriel Mata. And Gabriel Mata is a Mexican-American dance choreographer, educator, and performer based in Washington, D.C. He is the director of the Latinx Movement Festival in D.C. His dance performance work, Motion Memoirs, and teaching of contemporary sabor focus on queerness, immigration, and Latinidad, brownness, and community-based movement forms. Welcome, Gabriel. How are you?
Hi there, and thank you so much. I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to thinking back, but also thinking about the future.
I know it's the thinking back part, right? Like where it all got started. And that's what our students are listening in about too, because they're right there. They're in high school. They are either recently falling in love with dance or have been doing dance in some context of musical theater. So I'm really excited to dive into how you got to where you are today. How did you get started, and what was it about what happened in high school that sparked your interest?
Of course. And the first and most impactful thing was that a friend invited me to attend an audition with her, and it was for the dance team in high school. And it's a week-long process, but the day before the audition, she comes up to me and she's like, "You know what? You're not a very good dancer." And it was that challenge, or it was me being told, "This is something you can't do."
Wow.
That really lit a fire, and that really was like, okay, no, I'll show you. I'll show you that I can do this. But during that week, the audition was on Friday. And so we got results on the following Monday. And when I auditioned, I was really nervous. And when that Monday came along, I didn't make it to the team because
Hmm.
I'd never done this before. But
Yeah.
I still, that resonated. My friend telling me that I didn't know how to dance, and that was um, the end of my
Hmm.
sophomore year. So by the time my junior year came along, I made sure to sign up for a beginning dance class. And
Hmm.
I'm happy to say that for my senior year, I did make it to the dance team of my high school. So,
Nice.
yeah, it was great to come around, learn all these things with
Hmm.
some inspiration and a challenge, and then come around to show that I was able to dance and I made it to the team.
Wow. Now, what kind of team was it? Was it like a competitive dance team? Was it, like what style of dance?
Yeah, in our high school, we have more in the performing arts category. Not only that I get to learn ballet, a bit of jazz, lyrical, and modern, I also got to take hip hop and also be the choreographer for our high school's musical of Grease,
Oh,
which was a
wow.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So then what advice do you have for high school students who are just discovering their passion for the performing arts or specifically for dance? I know that there are a number of students who do get the opportunity to take dance classes from, really little teeny boppers all the way up through high school, but then there are some students who literally fall in love with dance, sophomore year in high school, right? What is the advice for that young person when they're like, I want to do dance, I don't have all the years of training. Like, can I still become a professional at this? What would you say?
Yeah, I too felt once I started dancing at the age of 16 that I was like kind of older and I had missed out on so much. But I really became to I came to learn that um, it's just a dedication to it that allowed
Mm.
me to catch up to some of my colleagues, as well as to be able to even push me further and really focus and organize myself. So 16 isn't an older age to start at, but neither is 30 or whatever age anyone wants to start learning to dance.
Yeah.
Um, I think go for it. And what drove me was like the anticipation and the hunger and the images of me trying to do all these moves that really excited me and allowed me to focus and really organize myself. But also, I had the wonderful support of many friends who were cheering me on and were there with me as well. So I didn't feel like I was going at it alone.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Gabriel, that you took a class in between sophomore and senior year. Was that at your high school where you took that class, or was that like out in your community?
Yeah, it was part of the dance program at my high school, and it was an intro to dance. So we learned a bit of everything. It wasn't just here's dance. It was really well organized. We did learn ballet, modern jazz, lyrical, as well as nutrition and also physical
Mm,
conditioning. And we got to choreograph our own dances. We got to also perform. And so it was just a complete package that allowed me to see the entire world of dance. We got to learn about lighting design, staging, and also costume design. And so within that 1 year, I was just immersed in the world of dance, and I completely loved it. I think that was one of the things that sparked my thinking of continuing on in the trajectory or career of dance is because I
yeah.
got to touch a bit of every topic, but also I was kind of invigorated by every topic. I didn't want to
Mm,
just do dance and move. I wanted to also think about lighting and color palettes for costuming and music and
yeah.
composition. Yeah.
Yeah, you were like producing at that point, designing the entire
Yeah.
concept. That makes so much sense to me. I wanted to point that out because I think it's really important for students to also kind of take a step back and go, wait, what are the resources that are in my school? Like, does my school have a dance class? Is there something that I don't have to necessarily go outside of my school for? And obviously, then the next step could be what's in my community. But it's always great to have that resource just right from the top of what does my school offer. So that's really awesome. Now, here's something really cool that I've learned about you is that you've created a genre of work called motion memoirs. So can you explain what this means and how it allows you to tell stories through movement? Because it sounds awesome.
Yes. One of the things that inspires me a lot is my community and the way I grew up. And I'm
Mm,
Mexican, but I also grew up in the US, and I have my history as an undocumented immigrant. And
mm,
when I think about all the different shows and the different dances, that specific topic isn't necessarily touched on. And
mm,
when I think about the community that I grew up with, I always am curious if they attend my shows or when they come to my shows, do they feel like they can connect?
mm,
Um, and so that's part of why I expanded what I do, not just dance, but a mentor of mine also I started learning from them how to use voice and dance. So
mm.
I am able to include a narrative or a story or be more poetic and fuse movement and language and the textures and tonalities of voice.
Yeah.
So I'm not a singer, that's for sure, but I definitely like to play with the use of voice and what it allows, how it allows dance and voice to be more humanistic and connect to other people.
Yeah.
And I called it Emotion Memoirs because it really does draw from my lived experience
Hmm.
to my present, and I get to create works that think about the future. And so there's that sense of motion from the past, the present, and the future moving through. And it is in part because of my lived experience. And I hope it is able to be something that offers the community to connect with. But I also use humor as well. So it's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, here's a story, but I like to change the tonality and the feeling that everyone experiences and also be very playful and comedic about it.
Oh, I'm excited. I want to see.
Yes, yes.
Yes, you have to update us on any upcoming performances or presentations of this because I would love to see your work.
Yeah,
I
I'll make
mean,
sure to.
and you have extensive amount of work. I mean, we also have a project of yours like the Latinx Movement Festival, and
Mhm.
it's focusing on uplifting diverse communities and narratives. And you just mentioned like, motion memoirs is connected to like your actual lived experiences. You know what I mean? So there's a big theme that's coming out in the work that you're doing. So how would you describe the way that you use dance as a form of social activism and to create a more inclusive space in the performing arts. You've already kind of touched on it through your explanations, but just curious if there's anything else you'd like to add about that and how you use dance in that way.
I think one of the ways that dance continues to excite me, but also um, offer new avenues is community organizing. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of where the Latinx Movement Festival came from. When I think about myself in contemporary form, it's not as common to come across a community of Latinos or Latinx contemporary dancers,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in DC, just because we are, it's hard to come up in contemporary form and really have that dedication, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're dealing with an undocumented status or the
Yeah.
support of family or
Mm-hmm.
not having the resources or the jobs to help you continue in that pathway. Or for how some people say you don't have the technique.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily believe in any of that. So the Latinx Movement Festival for me is a pathway for Latinos, not just in dance, I will say, but we this
Mm.
year we have a singer, a poet, and a filmmaker that will be presenting in collaboration with other
Wow.
movers. Yeah, so when I think of Latinx movement, I don't just think about it as dance, but this is
Mm-hmm.
how we're able to just expand a little further and bring in a bigger community because we're not just Mexican,
Yeah.
we're not just Puerto Rican, Colombian, Salvadorian. Like we're just such a big, diverse world, and at least this way is one way we can come together. One thing that I'm excited to share about this year, this will be the second year, is that we're commissioning 8 different local DC artists,
Mm.
and it's in duet form, so they're partnered up. So
Oh,
here's one
cool.
dancer with a musician, and they're partnered up, and
Mm.
they get the opportunity to talk together to develop a work that
Mm-hmm.
connects both of them, but also speaks to a larger topic. And so I'm excited to for these 4 new works that will be presented.
Yeah, and this movement festival, is this something that like you've always wanted to do? Like, because I think when you're thinking about our listeners and it's like, whoa, like Gabriel created an entire festival. Like, how could I ever do that? Like, how did you write it down in a notebook somewhere and then you just kind of like decided to do it? Like, how did you get started on creating your own festival? How does someone do that?
I didn't know that I could.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to attend many festivals.
Yeah.
There's festivals specifically for Latinx choreographers like Chicago, San Francisco, Houston, Texas, and I was able to just go participate, talk with the directors, organizers, and see how they all do it. And
Mm-hmm.
each festival is different.
Mm-hmm.
But once I felt I had the hat of a choreographer, I felt like I could develop the hat of a curator. I felt like
Yeah.
I could develop the hat of a director. And so
Yeah.
just from those stepping stones, I feel like I'm able to um well, I'll say this. Sometimes it's as easy as writing an email.
Yes, I
And
love that.
sometimes, uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's very practical for young people. Like, sometimes it's like reaching out to the people you want to learn from, and I also really like the fact another one is like go seeing other festivals, right? The thing that you desire to do, go see that in action, right? So that you have a context or something to build off of. And you just mentioned something really cool about you said once I had the hat of the choreographer, then I figured I could get the hat of the curator and then of the director and then of the producer. And here you have worked as with many different hats: performer, choreographer, educator, filmmaker, producer, right? So, how do all of these different roles either influence one another, or what skills from one discipline have you found to be the most helpful in the other? Like, would you say that, one of these, if like I would need this hat to do all the other things that I do, or what do you feel has been really helpful for you in your journey of being able to do all of this?
I think the first initial step was stepping onto the stage and performing for the first time.
Mm,
And that like fear, that kind of nervousness, um, that comes around from
Yeah.
exposing, your body, and that kind of follows you in all these steps. Um, but in the same way that I had a very supportive cast of dancers, it's also the very supportive group of in my director hat, that I also have a very supportive group of dancers and choreographers that I am working with, and they really push me to challenge myself and to apply for grants so that we can have funding and apply for grants that I think maybe I'm not ready for, but when I have a team that is able to read over my work or when they're able to make suggestions,
Mhm.
that openness for me feels healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily feel like they are approaching it as a way of just like criticizing my work, but they're really
Yeah.
trying to support this bigger idea
Yeah.
and intention of the Latinx Movement Festival.
Yeah. What I hear in your responses, Gabrielle, is community. Like your journey has so much community in it, even from like my friend telling me that I needed some work on my dance back in high school. Like you, there's always seems to be people alongside of you, which is I think really interesting because some of us we sometimes we can get caught up in the concept of success being like myself. Like I'm going to make all of this happen. And I think a lot of our listeners can really grasp something really valuable hearing your journey of understanding that people come alongside you. There's having that support, having communities, having fellow artists, having fellow mentors. All of that is what helps bring you into the place of success of where you are. And you were even mentioning just like, the first thing, just getting out on the stage and dancing in that vulnerable place just makes me think also of the fact that this journey obviously could not always be easy, right? There has to be some challenges, and so I'm curious if you'd be comfortable sharing or just reflecting on any of those big challenges you faced as a professional artist and what keeps you motivated to continue creating and teaching.
Yeah. One of the challenges, in part, is always feeling like I didn't have the perfect technique. And so it's kind of like a body kind of way because I did
Mhm.
start later at the age of 16. And
Mhm.
so to throw away that concept to me was one of the healthiest things I did.
Yeah.
Um, but I realized that I was trying to find a lot of roles or to be cast in these specific characters, I'll say, that weren't necessarily what I truly wanted.
Mm.
Because of that, I couldn't fit. I couldn't be a shark. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I couldn't be like a jet on West Side
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah.
I can't sing, so I couldn't take on these roles. And so
Yeah.
I needed to refocus on what really like what I can provide with my body
Yeah.
and also my story. I think that was one of the biggest driving forces for me to realize that it's like, well, I'm very specific about how I want to dance and present my body. I want
Mhm.
to respect my body, but also my identity.
Mhm.
And that was one of the greatest things because it propelled me to create my own original work.
Yeah.
Um, Not just in dance, but also in like performance art and theater as well. So my intention of that has allowed me to completely uh, challenge my art making, and
Yeah.
that's exciting to create original work.
Yeah.
Sometimes feels scary, especially when it's like an hour and a half work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the challenge of realizing, I think I took it as a fun adventure. I love West Side Story,
Yeah.
um, but I don't care for the men's choreography. If anything,
Mm.
I love the women's choreography. And so I
Mm.
took it upon myself. Once I auditioned, and I was only allowed to audition for the men's roles
Yeah.
at the American Dance Festival.
Yeah.
I took it upon myself to learn the women's roles
Yeah.
for the Sharks. And so I think it's just lively, it's musical, it's such a great challenge. And it's always
Mm.
whenever I teach it at American University is where I've been very consistent. They love taking on that challenge to imagine that they're um, they have these costumes and that they have to be
Yes,
very
the
musical. Yeah.
dresses.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's also just such a great piece of music,
Yes.
and fun.
Yes. And what piece do you usually teach? What song?
America.
America. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think I really love what made me go, was when you said how I want to use my body in this space. You know what I mean? And I think that is something that a lot of young people, I mean, the earlier you get that, it's golden, you know what I mean, in your profession, in your career, because it's like there's a lot of roles out there, and if we can get really caught up in like my only success is through auditioning for the roles people give me,
Hmm.
opposed to, well, what does this look like if I create my own space? And what is it that I bring that I can make space with, right? And I would argue that your journey seems to be really reflective of that, in so many ways. So there's a lot of self-reflection that you have, and I really would love to see your work. Absolutely, please share it with our program so that we can share it with our kids, especially those who are really inspired, to be dancers, and to be producers and all the multi hyphenates that you are, in this world. Absolutely. But when we get to the end of our interviews, we also love to talk about some advice. Our listeners, I'm sure, have already just gotten a lot of nuggets from hearing our interview today. But what's some specific advice that you would give to a high school student who's interested in a career in the performing arts, but may not come from that traditional dance or theater background?
Hmm. Um, I think, well, there's two things that I think is just be very curious about what you don't know.
Mm,
Because as where I am now, I never knew that I would be in my position now. And I'm still very curious about what I will discover in the future
mm,
and who will come along as well. I've been very fortunate to work in many different forms and to take that curiosity, um, has always allowed me to learn more.
mhm,
Um, because then it supports me in whatever I may be thinking about now. Um, and one example is, while I did grow up Mexican, I never got to explore ballet folklorico from Mexico.
mm,
And so my training was more ballet, modern, and contemporary. And now I get to go back and connect with this company that's local to DC called Corazon Folklorico DC. And I get
mm,
to work with the company. I get to write grants. I get to meet the community, and it expands my community.
mhm.
And because the dance form itself is very both festive, but it's also represents the nation.
Yeah.
So it has that connection. I've learned so much about my own culture.
Mm,
And while I didn't train in this when I was in school, I'm able
mhm.
to go in now and take a moment to have an appreciation, but also regain that cultural inheritance.
Yeah.
And it has also influenced my art making today.
Yeah. And like, how could they find their own unique voice and path, would you say?
I think always having a mentor is great.
Mm,
Someone who will really ask you questions and not just say you're doing great. I mean, it's
yeah.
great to have that wonderful support, but
Yeah.
someone who's really being like, okay, well, have you thought about this, or have you thought about how you can challenge it? Like, if you feel comfortable, how can you throw it off kilter? How can you create that level of uncertainty? Because I think in positions of feeling uncomfortable are we able to like push forward and find security? I've had one of my mentors. I've been talking with them. I've been connecting, emailing, texting with them. Gosh, I have to say it must be like 16 years now. And
Wow.
they have followed me in my trajectory. They have written letters of recommendation. They have come
Hmm.
seen shows. They have
Hmm.
even made donations to some projects. And I'm just like, well, that's very generous, but it's also been so wonderful that they've seen my artistic approach grow throughout the years. And
Yeah.
it's also great hearing how they've seen changes in my life or in my art making as well, but they've also been able to ask me questions, ask me like very specific questions about, why I'm making what I'm making. And it allows me to be self-reflective and dig deeper into
Yeah.
the source of why it's being made this way.
Yeah, I think I mean, the digging deeper is where we find our voice, right? It's when we start to think about who we are and what is it that we bring into the space, which is something that you've shared as well. Well, I mean, it has been lovely to have this time with you, Gabrielle, and to learn more about your work and what it is that you do, especially in the DC area. And just one quick plug, the Latinx Movement Festival is when and where?
Yes, the Latinx Movement Festival will be on October 10th and 11th with
Mhm.
evening performances at 7 p.m. And we will be offering free classes for the community on
Wow.
Wednesday and Thursday. So that's October 8th and 9th.
Yeah.
Um, and it will be held at Dance Place in the Brookland neighborhood in Northeast DC.
All right. Okay. So we already have a community resource. We can already go see some professional work. Like this is out here for you all. So thank you so much, Gabrielle, for your time. And thank you. We hope to see you again on our series for Teams Behind the Scenes. It was wonderful to speak with you.
Great. Thank you so much.